by age 30, we're like, who am I, God? I don't have a 401k. Are you faithful or not?
I am here today with Pat Barrett. So today we're digging a little bit deeper into what it means to go one step further in your relationship with Jesus. And you get to sing about God all the time, but I was just curious for you, where did faith start and did you grow up with it?
Oh, I grew up, well, my dad's a pastor.
Oh my word,
So I didn't have much choice in the matter. So I'm like the classic example of, like, even with music, like the most live music I ever heard growing up was in church. And it was the sound of, someone playing a piano or a guitar and then people singing what they really believed. And so before I ever made a decision that I was going to be a follower of Jesus in my own life, I was just forced into environments where that was just happening, right? And I have a bunch of friends that was not their experience, which I always found fascinating because I grew up with the lingo. I grew up knowing the Bible verses, but there wasn't really a heart transfer yet. And I don't think that happened for me until early in high school when I read, we were at like a retreat somewhere and someone opened the Message paraphrase of the Bible that I'd never heard before.
I like the Message too because I grew up in the church. It makes it sound new.
I was like, it was just different enough to like get past the usual, neuron pathway in my mind and go like, oh, we're talking about church things, shove it aside.
Heard that before.
It like hit me in a way that it just felt like it was my own language finally. Probably why I love writing songs. And, words feel important to me because I took them for granted at some point. And then all of a sudden, the right word at the right time got past all my usual defenses and I felt this opening up to God. And so I made my parents made a decision for me to like, this is how you're going to be raised. But I made my own decision. Like, okay, I think I'm going to be a disciple of Jesus when I was 14 or 15.
Oh, that's so powerful.
Yeah. I can't say much changed in my life after that. Like, and practically, but I felt the perspective shift of like, wow, there's something bigger and more meaningful and deeper to live towards and from, and I still feel that at 30, at 39. I turned 40 this year, so this is like, oh yeah, you can feel it. Did you feel that?
I don't feel it yet. I'm scared of it. It's coming, but yeah, you continue on and like. When you're in a relationship with God, you grow and grow as you go. And so what would you say you've learned about God now that you are like an adult? And how's your relationship with him changed since like 15-year-old Pat? I know it's a big question.
Well, I feel like it changes every week.
Really?
And like the more life you live, the more pleasant experiences you have, and then the more hardship you have as well. And I know that one of the reasons I'm still on the path that I'm on is because I've seen like you have to put all of it somewhere. Like all of the hardship, all of the regret, all the pain that was done to you or that you did to somebody else, and the worry and the anxiety, and you have to put it all somewhere. You can either put it deep inside and try to self-help your way through it, or you read, in the scriptures, you see like for thousands of years, people have casted their cares on God, and all of a sudden you realize, I'm not alone. I've never been alone. And life may make less sense now. Like the categories aren't clean anymore.
Yeah.
Life didn't behave the way I thought it was going to behave. Lost the job, moved the city, families changed. But there's always an invitation to live from a deeper, more meaningful place. And so when I read Jesus, like I'm still very compelled by those words. Like how free would someone be if you didn't let the sun set on your anger? Or you turn the other cheek, or you lend it without expecting a return, or you kept a short record of wrongs or no record of wrongs, or it's pretty amazing. Like there's some simplicity in the teaching, but also some depth and like transformative, miraculous power if we participate in it.
Keeps transforming
us.
That's
what I feel. I'm like, wow, it feels like the same faith as when I was 14, with just way more on the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With kids and a spouse and a mortgage.
I don't know how people do this without Jesus, but I know that plenty of people have a lot of stumbling blocks to actually getting to him. And you're out there, you talk to people all the time because you're sort of, singing these songs that profess your faith. So what are stumbling blocks that you found from people you talk to? Like, what do you think are some of the hardest things for people to overcome to get to Jesus?
Oh, wow. Well, I just go back to the Gospels where Jesus didn't really give a belief prerequisite to like follow him. And really, his own disciples didn't believe until way later.
That's a really good point.
So we do live in a very like aesthetic world where, we're surrounded by cameras and our whole life. We have some pressure to present a version of us that actually isn't us. It's the one we choose, right? And Jesus doesn't meet with that person.
That's good.
Which to me is really liberating because he doesn't meet with worship leader Pat. Like that category doesn't even exist to him. When there's just an openness to God, like a little faith, like the tiniest like inkling of faith goes a long way. Mm-hmm. And I find that to be very comforting because on my best days, sometimes that's all I got. You know? And I've said that I find hope and like a sobriety of mind there where I don't have to have it all together. I don't have to present myself in a certain way. And really, what do I do with all the contradictory feelings I feel in my life that I have believed or someone taught me to believe would disqualify me from even like engaging in that in a world of faith? Like Jesus didn't have that. Mm-hmm. So I think some of our own barriers keep us and cause us more suffering and trouble than we need. Like life gives you enough bruises, you don't have to cause your own.
But we're so good at it.
I'm the best
like
at
shame
it.
and thinking that we have to clean ourselves up for God. I think that's a lot of the stuff that you end up writing about, I'm sure, is trying to get some of these barriers put away or like trying to help people have a clearer picture of who Jesus really is. And I think that's what we're trying to do today is like help people see Jesus clearly. Yeah. And you live in the Bible Belt and I have as well. There's a lot of people who go, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, I know God, because they were raised in church or they listen to songs about God, but may not actually know him at that intimate level you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So what would you say that difference is between someone who generally says they're a believer and like an intimate relationship with him? How do people get from point A to point B?
Honesty. There's a lot that I don't understand and I'll never make sense of. I'll never make sense of that loss in my life. That is an unanswered question. But there's a story of a God who suffered them with us. Yeah. And in that compassion and empathy, I think there's a doorway there to find him. Anytime I get too ahead of myself and I feel like the Pharisee in the Bible, like Jesus said to people like me, you diligently search the scriptures, but you refuse to come to me. Mm. Like you know all the right things, but there's not a trust and an openness in your heart. And usually you find out what you really trust in when things go wrong.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yes, that's when stuff overflows and you go, what's that coming out? I didn't know that was in me in the first place. And that's where you got to figure out where you run.
And we think we need a lot of things to find contentment and happiness. We need the right job. Who told you need the right job? Well, I kind of grew up feeling like I needed the right job. I need to feel like I'm moving forward. I need to, everything about Jesus was countercultural to that. He lived a hidden life for 30 years. You don't know anything about it. By age 30, we're like, who am I, God? I don't have a 401k. Are you faithful or not?
And Jesus was like, I'm just getting started.
And there was a point in time where, I mean, he was going to go to some festival and his brothers were like antagonizing him a little bit and said, hey, if you want to be a public figure, this is what you're supposed to do. And he didn't participate in life the way we choose to, and he didn't find the things everyone was telling him were important. He didn't really agree with those values. So the discipleship aspect of faith is like, I don't know what this starts to change internally, but I just know that if I practice some of these things that Jesus told me to do pretty explicitly, just practice them, things start to shift and change. Like no one's like, I'd love to be generous today. That's not your inclination. What you do is you give when you don't want to give, and then eventually your heart catches up to the action.
Yes.
Instead of like, I guess I'll give when I'm generous. Oops, never got there.
But that's so insightful that like sometimes following God is being obedient and then trusting that our hearts will catch up. I love that.
Oh my gosh, it's like parenting too. If my kids are like, I'll clean my room when I'm doing it with a good heart. I'm like, no, you will not. You will clean the room now.
I love that they're trying to use like a Christian aspect on you.
Don't turn this on me. I'm like, that was a good one though.
Yeah. You're like, you don't want to do it out of the wrong spirit, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
That is so insightful that sometimes you just take another step towards God, even if you don't feel like it's the right thing to do.
My feelings are all over the place. Like on a good day, I'm like, wow, this is wild.
So if someone's really on the fence about a relationship with God because they're just nervous, they don't know what it's going to look like, what would you say to them?
I'd say try it. And there were people in Scripture that were nervous to follow Jesus as well. There's a story of a religious leader he went to go to Jesus at night because I think it was Nicodemus. Don't quote me on the name. I read that story and I was like, oh my gosh, I know that feeling. There were people who felt so much like shame and guilt for their life that they felt like that was the reason they can't. Like there's every reason why we can't, but the fruit of living a life that way is just uninspiring. That's what I had to ask myself. Like anytime I live apart from this way that I've given myself to, I'm like, well, how's that going for you? Well, I have more anxiety. I'm losing more sleep. I'm more worried about tomorrow. I have a hard time letting go of things that I wish would have turned out different. However, when I take all that and I give it to God, all of a sudden I have more peace and I have less anxiety. And I don't need to know the answer in order to feel settled in my heart. I can trust that someone else is holding that. And then all of a sudden you tap into the eternal things that no one can take away. Like if your life's built on money and your job's going great, life probably looks fine. The minute pay cuts happen or layoffs or whatever, like the money can take the peace away, but there are truly like ways of living that no one can touch.
There's power there.
There's power there. And all of a sudden you start to realize like, oh, Jesus was right. I don't think it's an easy answer, actually. I think it's a simple answer and it always feels difficult. But I would say just try. You tried the other way.
Okay, well, we have to go from that high to the high of your new song, your new single called Beautiful Life. And it had some like Ecclesiastes from the Bible undertones that I got.
Overtones.
Which is so good because Solomon's this character in the Bible who gets the things that a lot of us wish we could get. Yeah. He's like rich, he's famous, he's well known, he gets all the things and then goes, but it's meaningless. Yeah. And I love that you put like that there's a time for everything, his words in your bridge. Yeah. And I want to know where that song came from because you've got this great line, but you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Where did this song come from? Well, the song, I just ripped it right out of Ecclesiastes 3. You heard it here first. Stolen from the Bible. Plagiarized from the Bible. Solomon sang it first. So, and that's why I think it's powerful for me, because it's not a new idea. Yeah. And the gift of the scriptures is that all of a sudden we get a perspective on life that feels
it feels like it's filled with intention and promise from God without the guarantee that it's all going to be pleasant. So, I mean, Ecclesiastes says he's made everything beautiful in its time. Everything. Time to reap, time to sow, time to break, a time to mend. Like all these, polar opposite experiences we have, like what do you do with all of it? And how can we view all of it, regardless of the hardship? And it's a gift.
It's hard to see it that way
It's
sometimes.
hard to see it. It's hard to see it that way, but what's the other option?
To just dread every day.
Yeah, you wake up and you're scared of your own shadow. You're just nervous. So there's a way to just receive your life and say, God, thank you. We're given like all these like scriptures that give us like ways of if you got nothing to be thankful for, you're like, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Lord, at least I'm breathing. There's like something, there's simplicity in that. I know we've all felt that way. And so I think there's just, for me, it encourages me on the path without feeling like I have to get everything I want the way I want it, the way I thought it would be in order for this to be beautiful.
It already is.
It already is. And I was saying like, life is beautiful, but it ain't always pretty.
Can we get that on
honestly,
a t-shirt?
Yeah, I'm like, neck tat, bam. Not on the neck. Okay, well, I'm just saying like that's what it feels like sometimes. And it's giving me like hope when things are hard. I'm like, okay. I'm like, this is a gift too. He's like, yes, this is a gift too. That you even got like, if I didn't want this to happen, it's like, I didn't, no one would have wanted that to happen.
What a perspective.
It can still be, your life can be a gift even when you experience things in it that aren't.